From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast.
Happy editing.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, Mark. I do look forward to the return from our trips, sitting in front of a computer. Days of work.
I give up when we get home. I just do my laundry.
Before we tell you where we're headed and whatever, which you probably already know because you've seen the title of the podcast wherever you clicked on it, but the way we separate our jobs here is that Mark does all the pre-production, so he arranges our amazing trips. So he's actually the one that you should hate. And I'm the one that makes it sound really nice, so I'm the one that you should love.
In fact, I hate both of us because we both go on these trips.
So where are we headed this time, Mark?
I don't know. Where are we going?
It's another of these places where we have a problem with the name, and I'm sure we'll hear it numerous times over the next couple of days. But there are about 7 or 8 different ways to spell and pronounce the name of the city that we're going to in northern Greece.
I always knew it as Thessaloniki from my history lessons.
Correct, me too. And I think probably most Jewish people know of the Jewish community of Salonika.
And in Hebrew, I think they say Saloniki.
Right. And we will hear, I'm sure, most of the time that we are over there, something like Thessaloniki.
Once I started saying it, I knew how to say it until we were going, and then I can't actually pronounce Thessaloniki.
Now you understand why I said at the start I have to do all this editing. They also refer to it, some people, as Thessalonika. And there are a couple of other variations. So yeah, if you look on Wikipedia, which is where Mark and I do most of our research, you'll see multiple spellings and pronunciations.
I use the Encyclopedia Britannica. A nice man sold it to me many years ago. I'm still paying for it in installments.
We are in Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, awaiting our flight, which has been delayed by 45 minutes. But meantime, what do you know about Thessaloniki?
I know a lot more now that we're going because I took some time to read a little about it. But all I knew was it was in Greece. It was close to the border with, I think, North Macedonia it's called now. There's a port there. And there's quite a lot of history about the Jews. But more than that, not a lot.
So I didn't realise, till I looked on a map, that it's on exactly the same line of latitude as Istanbul, and they're actually not that far away. And I'm sure that we'll hear in the stories how this part of the world, there were population swaps, the people who came in and invaded might have been from Turkey, the predecessors, the Ottomans and even the Byzantines. It's an area where there have been lots of invasions, as you said, next to what's these days called North Macedonia. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, the region of Greece that we're going to is Macedonia, which is a name that dates way back. And we're also not that far from Bulgaria, from Albania. It's right at the bottom end of what we call the Balkans.
With my limited knowledge of Jewish history, when I think about Jewish history, you think about Eastern Europe a lot, and you think about North Africa, you think about the Arabian Peninsula, Iran, Iraq, Persia. Those are the main areas you focus on. I didn't realise how influential the Jews of Salonika were and are, and how much of a role they play today in, say, modern Israel. Not just modern Israel, in the world in general.
Another thing we're going to discover is, of the various places that you mentioned, North Africa, Eastern European Jewry, etc., many of those found themselves at some point in history living in this town that we are heading to in a moment. Mark, quiz question.
Okay, we've spoken about the influence of Jews from Salonika. I'll name one. Can you tell me who he is and why he's famous? His name is Albert Bourla. Who is he?
The answer at the end of the pod.
To talk the latest news in Israel, the Jewish world, and everything in between.
This is the J-Post Podcast. I'm Tamar Uriel-Beery, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Tzvika Klein, Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Sarah Ben-Nun, Night Editor at the Jerusalem Post. Join us as we bring some of the most impactful voices to bring you into what it means to be Jewish, to be Israeli today.
Every week, we bring you with us into the newsroom in every sense.
Stop being so dramatic. This is just our coffee break.
You can find us every Thursday on jpost.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll see you there.
Yalla, bye.
Part of the joy of being with David travelling around the world.
That's the first time you've ever said that.
And probably the last, if you're going to interrupt me mid-sentence. Part of the joy of doing this podcast and being with David around the world is we get to sit in synagogues in different countries and appreciate the spread of Jewish life, of Jewish influence around the world. And today is no different. We are in the centre of Thessaloniki, and we are sitting in a beautiful, reasonably modern synagogue. I won't go into too much detail about what's here because we have a wonderful guide with us, but it's fabulous to be here.
It's the only time we ever actually enjoy going into synagogue, because when there's a service on, we hide in the pews on the back row.
Yeah, Shabbat morning, it's a real pain to get me out of bed into a synagogue. I know when there's a rabbi not talking, I'm more comfortable in the synagogue.
Unless there's a good whiskey at the back.
Yes, Kiddush Club, can't beat it.
But what Mark says is very true, and we've travelled around quite a few of the countries that you will associate with the Holocaust and with terrible stories. But as we've always tried to say on this podcast, is you've got to look beyond the death, beyond the tears, beyond the destruction, and look back at history. So we've talked about the 1,000-year history of Poland, and we've told you the stories from Bratislava and all sorts of other places. And Thessaloniki is also part of that type of story. In fact, as we're about to hear from our tour guide, Thessaloniki possibly has the most fascinating, rich story of Jews anywhere in the world.
Hello, I'm Hella Kounio-Matalon. I live in Thessaloniki. My family used to live here since 500 years, so after the expulsion from Spain. I'm a daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. My father survived the concentration camps, and my mother was hidden with her family in Athens during the war.
You said your name is Matalon. I know the synagogue we're in is called Borla. These names are very familiar. Matalon, there's a Matalon Street in Tel Aviv. Borla, we know the name from modern COVID history. It points to the fact that this was a very influential community in its day.
Thessaloniki was very influential, especially from the 15th century to the 20th century, when in certain points of its history, the majority, the dominant population of the city was Jewish. Very common names that we know very well all over the world. You can find here, like the ones that you mentioned, like Sassoon, from the Vidal Sassoon, Modiano, the writer. Very special names, Danone, the yogurts. All these Karasso come from Thessaloniki.
Let's go way, way back in history. This city dates back to 300 years BCE, when Alexander was in this part of the world. The city is named after his half-sister. The Jews came the same time, not long after.
From the first day that Cassander made his city here, Jews started following him here in this area, mainly for trading reasons, speaking Greek fluently. And the majority of the Jewish people who came here at this period were in the Roman period in 1st century BCE. So from the very first moment, we have Jewish presence here in Thessaloniki.
The great Jewish traveller Benjamin of Tudela mentions Jews here in around the 12th century, but looking to my left, there is a wall that represents all the synagogues that were destroyed in 1941 and the dates when they were established. There seem to be 2 key periods on there. One is 15th century, and one of them is around 1917 onwards. Why are these 2 dates so important to the Jewish community?
After the 15th century, after the expulsion from Spain, tens of synagogues were built in the city because a very big number of Jewish people came after the expulsion from Spain. So more than 20,000 people arrived here, turning the atmosphere of the city to being more a Jewish city, speaking Ladino, and occupying the most important part of the city closest to the port. This is why we have tenths of synagogues built in this period in Thessaloniki, having the names of the places where the people came from. And the other key period, as you said, is after 1917. Thessaloniki was totally destroyed. Its historical center was totally destroyed by a huge fire in 1917. And together with the buildings, together with the shops and the houses, tenths of synagogues were burned down. After that, some of them were reconstructed, and this is how we have a big number of synagogues built after 1917.
All around us are very modern, very comfortable pews. There are siddurim, prayer books, and so on. So I'm assuming that this synagogue is used as a synagogue and not a museum.
This is Yad LeZikaron synagogue. Actually, this is the most central synagogue today. We have two synagogues which operate, but not at the same time. So this synagogue is used for the everyday prayers. We have 2 prayers every single day, and of course the big holidays and Chabad, but also every single day. So this is the most used synagogue today.
If there are people visiting who want to pray, they can come here.
They are welcome to come. Of course, they have to show their passports first, but yes, they are welcome to come. Everybody is welcome in the synagogue. No one is member like in other synagogues. We all come here freely.
And people can come and visit the synagogue on a tour.
Of course, this synagogue is open for tours, like the other one, the Monastirioton and Yad LeZikaron, are open for visits every day, except for Saturday.
I just wanted to say, one of the things I love, other than sitting in synagogues and not praying, is that when we have wonderful tour guides, we learn new things on each trip. And you and I learned the etymology of the word bank, which I never knew. And it comes from the fact that moneylenders in Italy used to sit on benches, predominantly Jewish. And if you take the Italian word for bench, it's banco, which has become shortened to bank. This is the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
Not only is Hella an exceptional guide, she also has a beautiful voice. Here she is singing in Ladino as we visit another synagogue.
Tu madre quando te parió y te quitó al mundo, corazón no te dio para amar segundo, corazón no te dio.
Not just one synagogue we get to sit in and not pray, but we're in a second synagogue now. This synagogue is much earlier in some respects than the previous synagogue, which was rebuilt in the 1970s, the 1980s. This is the last synagogue that was built in this city, I believe. Can you tell us about it?
This is the last synagogue that was built in the city in 1926. It was built by Monastiri Jews. Monastiri is a city in the borders of Greece and North Macedonia. It used to be called Monastiri, and now it's called Vitola, the city, where there was a vibrant Jewish population. But for many reasons, they moved in Thessaloniki in the second decade of the 20th century. Together, the family Aroesti moved here. So when the husband of Aroesti, Isaac Aroesti, died, his wife Ida decided to make a synagogue right here, and the Monastiri people helped her a lot. This synagogue today is called Monastirioton or Monastirli, to honor the people of Monastiri who made the synagogue here. This synagogue was not destroyed during the war. It's the only synagogue that was not destroyed during the war, and this is like a miracle because it was given to the Red Cross and it was used to house the horses of the Red Cross, so it became a stable. Very disgraceful for a synagogue, however, this is the reason it survived, and everything that we see today in this synagogue, it's from the day it was constructed.
I don't know whether to say that it was good timing or very poor timing for the construction of this synagogue, because, as you say, it's the only one that survived the Holocaust. On the other hand, its arrival almost welcomed the Holocaust, as it were. I mean, the stories that you've told us off mic, and we're not going to have time for all of it, this building played a very central role in what happened to many of the Jews of this city.
Exactly. Since it was in the center of the largest ghetto in the city, Thessaloniki never had ghettos before. The ghettos were constructed only by the Germans. So on this synagogue, it was the Rabbi Koretz, the last rabbi of Thessaloniki, who addressed his people here. A very controversial personality. Although he was a very good rabbi on his official duties, he couldn't come close to his people. Anyway, he was not so much loved or so much respected. Anyway, he came here and he spoke to his people in February 1943, only to tell them that they have to abandon Thessaloniki because Germans ordered them to so, and to remember to exchange their drachmas into zloty, and to take warm clothes with them, and not to worry because the Jewish community of Krakow would give them houses and works. So this is not true, of course. We know very well that they could not do something like that. So the rabbi played a very controversial role during the Holocaust here, and he was accused by our community as a traitor for things like that.
This synagogue is important to you and your family as well. The stairs over there, what we're facing now, play a very significant part in your life. Do you want to tell us about that?
The whole synagogue, of course, plays a huge role in my life, because here we celebrated our family events for decades, for generations after the war. My parents were married here, for example, and I showed you a beautiful picture of this period. And me, myself, was married here. I had my bat mitzvah, my husband his bar mitzvah, our children had bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah. So all the big family events take place here. And the big celebrations of the Jewish calendar throughout the year take place here. So it's a very special place to be, connecting us to our Jewish faith and to our Jewish feelings.
I imagine as we continue on our journey, we will hear about what happened between 39 and 45 in a bit more detail. But when you come here yourself and you're a tour guide, you bring groups, you bring individuals, when you walk into this synagogue, into this sanctuary, what are you thinking? What is it that you have in your heart that maybe you don't share with the groups that you're guiding?
What I have in my heart every time I visit this synagogue is the picture of Thessaloniki before the war. I can imagine, I don't know it, I can imagine a city with so many synagogues, with 50,000 Jews living in a peaceful coexistence with all the other groups in the city for centuries and vanished from one moment to the other. It strongly reminds me of the Holocaust when I come here in this synagogue, and the fate of my own family, where I lost 50 members in total from both sides. I could have now tens of cousins, maybe some of them I wouldn't know them, and I have only 2 cousins today. This is what breaks my heart, being in a very important place, a very important synagogue, but standing here in a way alone, without my ancestors anymore.
Again, as we asked at the last synagogue, how do people come and visit this synagogue?
In the periods of summer where we have many visitors, they can just come here, but they have to have their passports with them. That the best is to make an appointment through our community or through our museum. They make an appointment and they can visit.
Adio, querida,
Thessaloniki Fact File. The main airport, Thessaloniki, Macedonia, is accessible from most European cities via Aegean Airlines and Ryanair. Flights are also available from major airlines such as British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa, Swissair and LOT. Direct flights to Thessaloniki from Tel Aviv are available with El Al, Sundor and Aegean. Getting from the airport to the city centre takes 20 to 40 minutes by car. Taxis are available at the terminal. There is a bus service between the airport and the city centre, with connections to the central railway station and the Macedonia regional coach terminal. Tickets can be purchased from the bus driver and cost around $2. We stayed at the Tate Hotel, a 2-minute walk from the sea. 5-star hotels in the city include the Electra Palace, Mediterranean Palace and Monasti Hotel. The Hyatt Regency, which houses the largest casino in the Balkans, is closer to the airport. $100 will buy you 91 euros as of October 2024. Thessaloniki has a mild, moderate climate with a significant amount of rainfall during the year. The highest average temperature is 26 degrees Celsius, 79 degrees Fahrenheit, but can reach maximums of 40 degrees Celsius, 104 Fahrenheit. January has the lowest average temperature of the year at 4 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Thessaloniki cuisine is Greek with elements of Eastern flavours remaining from the Ottoman Empire. The two signature foods are bugatsa, a sweet or savoury breakfast phyllo pastry, and koulouri, circular breads covered in sesame. Thessaloniki is also a coffee hotspot and the birthplace of frappe coffee. We ate at Moldy next to the Tate Hotel and the Estrella Brunch restaurant. Every type of restaurant is available from fine dining to pizza and burgers. Tuck in. Kosher food is available from the restaurant at the Astoria Hotel next to Bet Chabad.
As we've brought you this podcast over the last 3.5-4 years, we've brought you wonderful, wonderful tour guides. But in most cases, they're somewhat detached from the story. They're lovers of art, they're lovers of history, they love their town. But the stories are not usually personal. For you, it's very different when we're talking about the period of the Holocaust.
For me, it's not doing a tour. It's like having a mission here, like a mitzvah, going with people and teach them, let's say, in a way, the history of the Jewish presence in Thessaloniki. My family story could not be less than a part of it. First, I remember my family, and second, through my stories, friends who visit here, the visitors, can understand what exactly happened here in Thessaloniki. For me, the most important is to teach the history of the Jews of Thessaloniki to everyone.
The last time we heard from you, we were in the Monastir synagogue, and you told the story up to the start of the deportations, that period. We've come across the downtown, the centre of town, to the Jewish Museum. Before we carry on with the story of the Holocaust, what can people see here?
The museum is a very beautiful museum. It focuses to say the history of the Jewish presence in Thessaloniki. So it's not a Holocaust museum, it's a history museum of the city, except for the amazing historical table with photographs. More than that, the room of the 30s is very impressive because it shows the way the people were thinking in the 30s, not being able to understand or to realize what is going to happen. And also the Holocaust room, although it's a very small room, it gives shivers to the visitors.
When we were in the Holocaust room, you mentioned there's a glass display, and I know they're very personal items. For me, from a different angle, it tells the story of my uncle, and I saw a parallel because in Yad Vashem there is a spoon that he took with him through Mauthausen and camps like that. What is in that display from your family, and what story does it tell about your family's survival?
This window, there are several things that belong to my father. These were personal things that he brought from the concentration camps, like a cup. This was his own cup. And he said always that this was the most precious thing that he ever had during this period, because if he would lose that, he would not be able to eat, because the food was always a clear soup, no more than that. So losing the cup, you don't eat. A metallic bracelet with his number, of course not the number he got in Auschwitz, but the number he got in other camps after the evacuation of Auschwitz. He went to Austria, where he received another number engraved on his armband. And the most important to me is a calendar, which he received, empty calendar then, while he was hospitalized after liberation. So the American engineer gave him this booklet to write down the notes that he kept all the time during his imprisonment. He copied them and enriched them. This calendar now is an important educational tool through his book, because it tells the story right after liberation and not after many years when memory fades.
For many people, you talk about memory. The first thing they wanted to do when they left, if they were lucky enough to survive, was to forget, not your father.
Of course he wanted to forget, but it was more important for him to make people know. It was very hard for him, like everybody, because it's a big trauma. However, my father decided to speak about it, to make the world know, first to educate his own family. We were 4 siblings, so he had a big job to do with us, and then speak to the schools, make interviews. All his adult life, he was very active with that, and writing a book in the end.
We're standing in a room with the names that have so far been found of people that were killed from the Thessaloniki community, and you walk through and some of the names are very familiar. Mano, which is the Israeli cruise company. You see the name Florentine. There is a district in Tel Aviv named after the Florentine family. You see the name Carasso, who founded Danone and who are now responsible for most of the car imports into Israel. And sadly, we see the name Matalon that relates to your family. It's just so vast in here. How does a community carry on when it's been that big and that influential and then stays in Salonika afterwards?
It needs a lot of courage. This is why we're so few, because although 1,800 survived, we are only 1,000 today, and maybe a little bit less. It's very hard to continue like that. The people who returned stayed here only if they had something to keep them here, because all of them had lost all their families, all of them had lost all the property. Only if they could find some fragments of their former businesses, let's say, and they could start producing once again or making up their business once again, only in this case they continue to stay here. Otherwise, the majority of the people abandoned this beloved city of them.
How often is the museum open? How do people arrange a visit?
The museum is open every single day except for Saturdays. All the afternoons it is closed except for Wednesdays. And people can just step in. It's good to have a passport with you always. If they want to arrange a group visit, they have to speak with the museum first.
Outside of Buenos Aires, where would you recommend visiting?
Tell us why you've got a passion for Jewish history as an author.
Is there something unique here that you won't see anywhere else in Georgia or even the world?
Why on earth would you take this incredible boat and launch it in Israel, of all places?
Has David Hasselhoff been to the David Hasselhoff Museum?
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition with Mark Gordon and David Harris.
We've been for a little car ride around Thessaloniki, and you've brought us to this vast campus. What is this place and what's its significance to the Jewish community?
The campus of the University of Thessaloniki, which today is the largest campus in the Balkans, although it houses today the very good university, it used to be our cemetery. And I'm speaking of the largest and most ancient Jewish cemetery in Europe, having more than 350,000 tombs as old as 11th century at least. The fate of this cemetery, of course, was very bad because as the city grew larger, the plot became very valuable and there were several pressures from the city to receive the grounds of the cemetery. Of course, we don't do it. However, during the war, the authorities that were placed by the Germans here in Thessaloniki went to Max Merten, who was the German governor of the city, and asked him to give them the permission to take the grounds. So in December 1942, they received the permission and they gave to the Jewish community 6 days to exhume and move as many as they could in 6 days. So it's easily understood that only few tombs were removed, only the most recent burials. The rest remained there, famous people, famous rabbis, all our ancestors since 1492 at least, when they came from Spain, remained there. And in the seventh day, bulldozers came inside. They leveled the ground. They took all the material, which was valuable marble and bricks, and they were sold in the market as construction materials. So today, in many places in Thessaloniki, in buildings, in public buildings, in private buildings, in schools, in churches, in walls around the city, one can find remains of our tombstones, but the remains of the people still are on the same location where the university is being built.
You're talking about an area the size of 80 football fields. Do the students and the professors and the people who pass through this area have any idea?
Well, the professors, I'm sure they know. About the students, this is a big question mark. Many of them know, but the majority don't know anything because this is not taught. It's taught only in the classes of history, in the school of history and archaeology. This is where they get the information, of course. But the rest of the students, medicine students, engineers, fine arts, whatever, they have no idea. There is the monument. However, the monument, although it's a large monument, it's impressive, I would say, but you cannot see it easily from the street. So as you walk by, you can miss it very easily. You don't see it. Only if you're curious enough, you climb some steps to go to see it, and then you learn what it is. So unfortunately, we're speaking of a community of about 100,000 students in our city. The majority of those students have no idea of this cemetery.
So as I mentioned beforehand, we've arrived here after a drive around one of the suburbs of Thessaloniki. I think it would have been a suburb where lots of slightly wealthier Jews within the city will have lived. And amongst the buildings and the offices and the shops there were a number of very impressive mansions belonging to some of the members of the Jewish community. Can people go on tours of these mansions, and what is their function in Thessaloniki today?
We are speaking of the countryside neighborhood. This was called Avenue de la Campagne in French, which means the countryside. It was a very beautiful area. First, it was only vacation area, so it was only for summer houses. But gradually it became part of the city because it was connected with a tramway, with a tram. In this area, there were not only Jewish houses, there were houses belonging to Jews, to Armenians, to Christians, to Muslims. However, most of them belonged to prominent Jewish people and having a very good taste, mainly. Big houses with beautiful gardens, being close to the sea. However, now we cannot see many of them. We can see only some of them because most of these have been destroyed because the areas were rebuilt in big apartment buildings. What remain today of these houses, most of them are public buildings now, to the town hall or to the government or to big banks. Others house collections of paintings. Another one is a museum. Others are used for cultural events. So all of them have a very good use today. I'm happy that these are preserved and are used in this way. However, it would be much better if we had them all.
Perhaps the best way to see them all is to be in touch with Hella herself, and the best way to do that is contacting Hella through the Jewish Museum. We'll repeat that again in a minute when we finish the interview.
I would like to tell you that not only me, because you asked me also that I failed to answer to that. There are many guides, not only Jewish, Christian and Jewish, who do a tour of this area. So it's a very interesting tour to do. You can find it online for many guides, me myself through the museum, but other guides can do it also.
I'm just trying to get you some business. Anyway.
You can see that. I try to be polite and correct.
To the Jewish community today, which is something that you care passionately about, you are part and parcel of, and a very active leader. Fill us in a little bit on the Jewish community of 2024 in Thessaloniki.
Today we have a very vibrant but very small community at the same time. Before the war, we were 50,000 people here in Thessaloniki. Today, our community numbers 1,000 people. But on the other hand, this 1,000 people, we have a very good infrastructure. We support and we have an elementary school starting from the kindergarten to 12 years old to 6th grade. We have a summer camp where kids from all over Greece come, and not only, also kids from Israel or from other places can come. We have a place for our parents, for the old people, where they are given very good care. The museum itself is run by our community and it's supported by our community. What is the most important, in my opinion, is the community center, where they do a lot of events, where we gather, where we try to make events every single Friday, where we have now our Sukkot gatherings. This is the most important, I think, one of the most important activities, plus the education activities. So we have two educational activities, one in the school and one unofficial education, which targets mostly from 12 to adults. So everybody gets, even the old people have their own education on their house. The new museum is on construction now. There will be a new museum very soon, supported by several people like Germany, like Stavros Niarchos Foundation and Albert Bourla and many individuals who will support it. And it will open in some years, I hope.
This is a Holocaust museum.
A Holocaust museum, an educational center. It will not be only for the Holocaust. It will be also anti-racist museum, covering more than the Jews.
Hella, we have had a fabulous few hours in your company, and thank you for tolerating David and myself for this long. Thank you for singing for us. Thank you for telling your family's story. We really appreciate your time. As David said, if people want to get hold of Hella, contact the Jewish Museum and ask for Hella Kounio-Matalon. Probably just ask for Hella, they'll know exactly who you're talking about. Thank you so much.
I thank you so much. It was a very pleasant tolerance and torture. So have a good day. Thank you for inviting me.
Discover the future with Inside Israeli Innovation. I'm Eve Young from the Jerusalem Post, bringing you exclusive insights from Israel's top innovators. Each week, we dive into the latest trends in tech, business, and beyond with interviews from the brightest minds in the industry. Whether it's cutting-edge startups or revolutionary tech breakthroughs, Inside Israeli Innovation is your front row seat to the startup nation. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and stay ahead of the curve. Inside Israeli Innovation, where innovation meets inspiration.
We had a little technical issue with our recording machine, so I'm sorry if you can't hear enough of David. I find you hear too much of David normally, so actually it's a blessing. After a long day of walking, what better to do?
I knew that the expression, what better to do, would be said by either you or me at the start of this bit of the podcast.
Than annoy David with a cliche.
Yes, but it is such a deserved cliche in such a homely place.
Yes, we are in the Astoria Hotel. Sounds like a nightclub from Manchester in the 1980s.
There used to be a hotel called the Astoria in Tel Aviv, opposite the Dolphinarium.
I think there's a famous one in New York, isn't there? This is not that hotel.
We are in, where are we? Thessaloniki.
Yes.
Every time I've heard somebody local say the name...
They don't say the th.
No, they do, but it sounds like they're saying the word the. They say Thessaloniki.
It sounds like the start of Kiddush, for those of you that say Kiddush.
What's Kiddush?
Kiddush, the Friday night prayer. The first four words are said very quietly. It's like, Thessaloniki.
Anyway, the Astoria has within it, on the first floor, a kosher restaurant.
And a synagogue.
And we're surrounded by men.
Because it's nearly Rosh Hashanah and they're all off to the Ukraine, despite being warned a million times not to. One thing I would always recommend is look at travel advice. And when the travel advice says, don't go to the middle of the Ukraine because it's a war zone with missiles, don't go. But these gentlemen in the restaurant with us are going.
All of that having been said, we're not here to discuss.
No, we're here to discuss the food, which is really good.
It is indeed. If you're looking for, as I said before, homey or homely food, this is exactly what you're going to get. It's the typical Israeli fare, I guess. There's tahina, there's an interesting, actually very tasty eggplant salad, aubergine. I'm having shakshuka.
A spicy shakshuka.
Very spicy. And your good self?
I had the chicken breast.
So you're getting a good mix of a meaty meal. And for a lot of you listening to this podcast, of course, having kosher food is very important. And we know that there are certain places that become restrictive or places that you won't go to because you don't have that kosher option. We're 2 minutes, 3 minutes away from the sea, right in the heart of the tourist area.
The lovely manager of this restaurant came up to us and told us, are you with us for Rosh Hashanah? There are 1 or 2 issues with flights. She said, don't worry, we'll look after you. She was very friendly, very happy to be here. When we pointed out we were leaving, she was like, yeah, probably.
Hopefully,
well,
hopefully.
We are hoping to leave Thessaloniki tomorrow.
We're bringing you this podcast 2 days after the leader of Hezbollah has been toppled in Beirut, hence our concern about whether we actually get out of here tomorrow morning. Should we say a little bit of a summary?
About the restaurant?
No, we've done the restaurant. Now
Okay.
we can talk about very interesting people actually walking into this restaurant. It's a bit like Fiddler on the Roof.
A little bit, except there are women. Just large amounts of men with suitcases.
Yeah, however, there are now more than 10 men other than us, so we might not have to stay to help make up a quart minion.
Yes, which is good, because I had no intention of doing that.
Let's summarise our stay.
Firstly, the chips are excellent.
Is that it? Again, they are. They're very good. From a Jewish perspective, which is what this podcast has been about, did you expect the stories that we've heard? Did you expect to see the sights that we saw?
I did, because we had an itinerary, and it said you'll go. Anyway.
Oh, God, this is never going to end. Yes.
Before we were told we were coming here, I didn't know a great deal about how Jewish Thessaloniki was. I knew it was a location that you could get to on a budget airline from Israel or from the UK. Very easy to get to. It was a Greek port. I thought you would get a very typical Greek holiday experience. I didn't expect the depth of Jewish history that we are able to... Sorry.
Let me just explain. There are some young boys who've just arrived with what I assume is their father. They've got trolleys that they brought on the plane, had the hand luggage trolleys. They've also got the big protected cases for hats, and they're just walking in a circle around us because we're holding microphones at the dinner table, which is probably very rude on our part.
I'm feeling very religious. I think the phrase underdressed.
I wonder if a flight has just arrived.
You get that feeling?
The shopping bags are from Osha'ad, which is one of the supermarkets in Israel. So I'm guessing it's an Israel flight. You're saying stuff.
So, apologies, listener. I knew nothing about the 2,500 years of history, the fact that Salonika was the only Jewish majority city in Europe. There was this tough guy image about the Jews from Salonika, that when they were involved in the Shoah, there was something more resistant about them. And I don't think we mentioned it on the podcast, but when we were in the museum, there was a story of the Sonderkommando at Auschwitz. And again, the people from Salonika were behind it. But yes, unfortunately, like a number of places we've been to in Europe, it ended in tragedy for more than 90% of the community.
Can we say some thank yous?
Of course we can say thank you.
When you find the right page.
I don't read off a script, David. David, I'm all improv.
I just want to say, normally at this stage in our podcasts, we've had alcohol. This is not the case now.
Do you remember the alcohol we had an hour before we came out? Anyway, yeah, we are now stone cold sober. A big thanks to Maria and Lena from the Thessaloniki Tourism Organisation.
Thank you.
To Nancy from the Greek National Tourism Organisation. And Angela, who we met in Israel, who made this all happen at the beginning.
Thank you.
to Evgenia and all the team at the Tate Hotel and the Mouldy Restaurant.
Yes, absolutely. Really, really good.
And if you listen to our future episode, you'll hear more about why the restaurant is called Mouldy and it's not because the food was off. And to our wonderful guide today.
Hella was unbelievable, and we don't normally do a big plug, but if you are looking to come to Thessaloniki and you want to get the Jewish experience, as Hella said, reach out to the Jewish Museum, ask for her details, and she would be delighted to guide you.
Her full name is Hella Kounio-Matalon.
So thank you to all of you. It would be great if you told all of your friends about our podcasts. They come out once every 2 weeks. We're now almost at 100 podcasts, which is quite amazing. That means that I've spent a lot of time with Mark, probably more than with my own family.
Which is more than amazing. It's brilliant. My family have given up listening to me, so I can say what I want.
You can mail us markdavidpod@gmail.com. Our social is @markdavidpod.
Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, on anywhere where you listen to this podcast. And remember...
You've forgotten. What were you going to say?
And remember, the more 5-star ratings and great reviews we get, the more people that come and listen to us, and the better the better press trips we get. They're not holidays. I promise you it's not a holiday. We're working very hard.
Shall we finish with a quiz question, Mark?
Yes. Who is Albert Bourla?
He's famous.
He is. He's still alive.
Very famous. Science?
Yes, sort of.
Infectious diseases?
He probably has a few, but he's cured them.
Yes, what?
So, the reason I even asked about Albert Bourla, the Bourla family are a famous family in Thessaloniki. There was even a Bourla synagogue. You'll have heard when we spoke to Hella that the synagogues that were opened up in Thessaloniki initially were named after places where people came from, and then people had almost like their own family synagogue. So there was a Bourla synagogue, and parts of the Bourla synagogue are now in the Yad LeZikaron synagogue that we went to today. Albert Bourla, who was born in Thessaloniki. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Talking of infectious diseases. Albert Bourla is the Chief Executive Officer of Pfizer, who is the man who was responsible for injecting us so we could start travelling again after COVID-19. Thank you, Albert, and thank you, Thessaloniki.
We've had an amazing time, really, really, really. This is highly, highly recommended. If you are from Israel, it's only a couple of hours. If you're flying into Israel, consider this as a side trip. It's really worthwhile, whether it's for a long weekend or for a week. Easy, spend a week here. Oh, there's more people coming around the corner carrying Israeli duty-free bags.
Time to put that bouzouki player on.
Farewell.
Yasu and shalom.